What advice would you give someone that was where you used to be to get to where you are today? What would you tell them?
Just stay. Just stay. You know? Again, because suicide's something that's not understood by a lot of people. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of judgment about it. Some of the most financially strong people I know, some of the most emotionally strong people I know, some of the most relationally strong people I know are attempt survivors.
For sure.
Or at least wrestle with suicidal ideation.
It's never someone you expect.
Yeah, or sometimes it is.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes people will tell you, or they'll say something, and it's scary to the hearer. And so, just like any other mental health issue that we don't understand, what do we end up doing? We end up shaming. We end up saying these mantras that we think we've heard. Oh, that's the unpardonable sin.
Right.
And I would just say that to stay. It sounds so simple. Like when you go to AA for the first time, they'll say, "Don't drink and come to meetings." And it's like, well, the reason I'm at the meeting is because I can't stop drinking. How am I supposed to,
right?
And then they literally teach you, it's like, just for today. And so the thing that I would tell myself in the middle of that is just stay.
Welcome to the show with your host, RJ Montoya.
Hey, what's up, guys? RJ Montoya here. Welcome to Montoya Power Podcast. I have a really good buddy here, Richard Wallace, longtime friend. So we're just going to get into the podcast and dig in there. What's going on, brother?
Man, just another day in paradise.
I know, right?
That's been good.
Crazy weather, right?
Crazy weather. Only in Texas.
Man, yeah. They say a thing about in Texas, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute and it'll change.
It will change.
Right?
But the traffic's going to stay the same.
Man, well, it's getting a little worse. That's what they say. That's what they say. Just get you one of these, the horse.
The horse.
And you'll be good to go. So, yeah, Richard, for the people that aren't familiar with you, just tell them a little bit about yourself and, a little bit of your background.
Okay, perfect. So RJ and I served together in the Marines, headquarters battery, 214.
Right.
And as God's providence would have it, I separated out after the Marine Corps lifted stop loss in October, and then of 2003, and then I think you guys activated like basically a month later.
Yep.
And so I missed the sandbox, and so United States Marine, father of 3 incredible kids.
Yep. We got one here too.
We got one here. How old are you? 22. 22, 20, and 6, RJ. And then husband to a beautiful wife.
Awesome. And I've met your wife. She's awesome. Very nice person. Very friendly.
Yes.
So she was your rock for a long time, huh?
For a long time.
Before we get into that, I see you're wearing a Helping Our Heroes shirt. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. Helping Our Heroes, a grassroots efforts, just happened to be started by our good friend Travis Wilson. Travis works for and with Wells Fargo Advisors. He went to Iraq with you. He and I were actually the 2 Marines at 214 that didn't have a home. So he's a 0311 grunt, and I was a 2131. It was actually a closed MOS, and headquarters battery didn't have any guns, so we ended up in Motor T together. And he actually, when he got back from Iraq, kind of disappeared as far as social media and media was concerned.
Like we all do,
Yeah.
Got to stay off the grid for a while.
Off the grid for a while, and then you realize how important connection is.
Absolutely, yes.
And so I was actually pastoring a church in Carrollton.
Okay.
And he reached out to me, and we connected, I would think probably somewhere in 2017, early 2018. I had a massive relapse in 2018, ended up in treatment. And when I came out of Healing Springs, the treatment program that I went to, Travis reached out and was like, hey, I do this thing called the Helping Our Heroes Foundation. We're a pass-through charity. We raise money and we give it to veterans groups that are active and have their hands in the middle of people's lives.
Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah. And so I think to this point, started in 2011, to this point, we've given away just over $1.2 million. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of love.
It's doing a lot of good.
Yes.
And so right now we're in the middle of just helping our buddy, Sergio.
Shout out to Sergio Moreno. And so there's a fundraiser coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, that's going to be awesome. This is our second annual crawfish boil. It's going to be at the Frisco Bar. Those guys have been fantastic to work with. And not just the owners, but their staff has fallen in love with the Moreno family.
It's awesome.
And so like last year, we were expecting all the money that we raised from the boil, and their bartenders and servers were there working a shift, and we assumed they were getting paid and making tips, and all of those servers donated their time and their tips back to the foundation, and we were able to give the Moreno family
that's almost unheard of these days, but that's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that and serving the way that Christ teaches us to serve.
Yeah, selflessly.
Yes.
And they showed up and showed out. It was dynamite. We raised over $20,000 last year for Sergio, and we want to blow that out of the water this year.
Let's do that. Well, I'll definitely be there. We're going to get some rain, but we're going to pray, and we'll definitely be there. So we had a couple topics that we wanted to discuss and stuff. Perfect. But feel free to go wherever you want to start, your testimonial or business, just life in general. This podcast is for mentorship, motivation, and faith. So we hope that if you guys are getting something out of this, make sure you like and subscribe, and just drop the shout out in the comments if you want to see more things or you have any tips for us, because it's all a learning process.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, Richard.
Yeah. So, man, I guess really it starts, I'm a pastor's kid.
PK.
They say we're the worst. And then my sister was the good one. And shout out Marianne.
Hey.
And so I was a PK, really happy-go-lucky kid. I have wonderful, wonderful parents. Like when you think about a pastor and a pastor's wife, they are what they are in front of the congregation, behind closed doors.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I love people, love God, all about family. My dad's all about family. And, life changed for me when I was 11 years old. I didn't know it at the time. I thought she was just our babysitter, but it was actually a lady who had some life struggles and some mental health issues, and this is like back in the 80s when nobody really knew what mental health was. And
Right.
And
it wasn't as common as it is today.
Yeah.
It was frowned upon, if anything.
Yeah, certainly to discuss it. And unbeknownst to me, they had 7 kids, and the oldest son, who was the second oldest kid, ended up sexually abusing me for the better part of 1.5 years, and like violent sexual abuse. And, people even tell my parents, like, it just seemed like the light switch went off in Richard. And, so that led to a lot of doubt in my own mind. I don't know how real and raw you want to get, but when it comes to...
Hey, this is the podcast to do it. We like being transparent. We like being honest. We think that our story, our testimonials can help others, people that have been in similar paths. So I can relate to you a lot in your story. So I appreciate you talking about that and being open.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, just be as open as you'd like to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, being a pastor's kid and traditional conservative Baptist upbringing, there's a lot of confusion in my mind about, because it's abuse on one hand, and then you're also feeling and experiencing physical feelings, and you're having physical responses to things that at 11 years old, you're not used to.
Right, for sure.
And so that led to a lot of confusion for me as far as sexuality. And so then I'm hearing preaching from the pulpit about the sin of sexuality, and
it's got to be confused. Yeah,
as an 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid. And then, of course, this guy goes on to be just a violent sexual predator. He'll die on a violent sexual predators list. He's been in prison in 3 states. The last crime that I'm aware of, because they were a larger family, when he was a 30-year-old man, his brother was having his 14th birthday, and he was already on a violent sexual offenders list, and he invited his brother and his brother's best friend, essentially kidnapped his brother and his brother's best friend for 24 hours.
So this guy was a deep predator. This is what he did.
Just what he did and who he is.
Yeah.
And that's that part of the story. And so it led to a lot of confusion. I had nobody to go to talk to about it. and so I just thought I was dirty, I thought there was no hope for me. And so what he ended up doing to continue to prey on people in our small Christian school was, he would tell other young men, well, there's nothing wrong with this. These are things that Richard and I have done together. And so then the locker room chatter became, well, Richard's gay, right?
Gotcha. So he started to groom the children.
Correct.
In a sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Gotcha.
Groom children.
Okay.
And so that turned into, for me, what I've learned through a lot of treatment is subconsciously, I was trying to date and have relationships that weren't right, the way that I was dating and
Right.
behaving with females, to try to prove to myself and to other people that, hey, I'm not gay.
Right.
Instead of finding a good resource, finding somebody that I could have confidence in and go talk to about the things that I was feeling and the things that had been done to me.
And part of that was to quench the rumor mill, but also probably for yourself.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Both. And so that led to a lot of brokenness, a lot of hurt to the people that I dated and to myself. And that behavior was probably only fueled and furthered by my time in the Marines, where
All the aggression. Somewhere to release it.
Where
the
maybe
anger.
things aren't celebrated that should be celebrated. It's good times that we survived them. It's
That's
a good
right.
thing we survived. And then I was actually at an AT with Echo Battery 214 up in Joliet
Okay.
when I had my first sip of alcohol.
Oh, wow. Really? How old were you then?
I was actually a Bible college student, 19 maybe.
Okay, that's the first time you drank alcohol.
That was the first time I drank.
Okay.
I had a gunny that found some corporal's ID and got me into the NCO club. And
Bad gunny. Bad
Bad gunny. And I was actually at Fort Knox. And, it was like, for the first time, all that pressure and anxiety and everything disappeared.
Okay.
And
Or so you thought. It
So I
just kind
thought.
of clouded your...
yeah, I kind of
gotcha.
forgot that chapter in Proverbs that talks about it's going to come back tomorrow.
Hey,
Everything
hey.
that you're feeling today is coming back tomorrow when you sober up.
Reap what you sow. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And so, I mean, from that moment on, it was like I was just chasing that. And so that would have been, let's see, probably 98, 99. Ended up at 214, I think, in 2001 when I moved back down from Joliet. And so I was a non-functioning alcoholic,
Okay.
essentially from that moment on. I'd hold
So
small
you
jobs.
didn't just start like little increments. You like went all the way.
All the way.
Okay.
I mean, it's an absolute miracle that I don't have paper, that there were times where I woke up and had to call my friends and say, I know I was driving last night. Did I get you home safe?
Wow.
Is everybody okay?
Blackouts.
I mean, it's just, blackout.
Wow.
And I try to stay blackout. I didn't want to feel anything because I didn't know how to properly feel.
For sure.
And those are tools that I learned in treatment. And so then September 11th happened. And I think that was a hallmark day for just about everybody that's ever served.
Yeah, for the world.
Were you in?
No, I was actually in high school. So I actually saw the second plane hit the second tower. I was sitting at my brother's apartment couch because I was staying with him. I was working at UPS at night and going to school during the day like a hustler. And then I saw the plane. And as soon as I saw the second plane, I was watching it on the TV. Back in the day, it was like those small little box TVs. And I immediately in my head, I was just like, okay, we're at war.
Yeah.
And so I finished school, and I always wanted to be a Marine, but I went into school twice to college on my own dime. But the companies I worked for, they kept getting subsidized, and they had to lay people off. So eventually I was just like, you know what? I've always wanted to be a Marine. I got this recruiter, been chasing me for like 2 years, trying to get me in. So I prayed about it, and I said, you know what, God, if this is what you want me to do, then okay, then that's what I'm going to do. I get to serve my country, and I still get to go to school. So when I enlisted and I went in before I got active duty orders, I kind of knew 90% chance that something was going to happen like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, to answer your question.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a student at Arlington Baptist College. Kid Craddock in the morning.
Yeah, rest in peace, sir.
Rest in peace, Kid Craddock. Kelly Raspberry.
Yeah.
106.1 broke the news. I was actually on 121.
Really?
On the way to school. And, I thought for sure we were going. And so I just essentially dropped. I was like going to Bible college,
Yeah.
still drinking all the time. And I was running with a group of guys who were into the party drugs, ecstasy, GHB, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they would always try to get me to use. And then,
So you were doing all the hardcore stuff.
I wasn't at that point.
Okay.
Just
but you were getting
drinking, but I
introduced to it.
was with that
Gotcha.
circle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Circle.
Show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future.
Message.
I literally probably didn't leave the apartment. I stayed drunk from September 11th for like a solid week. And then the next time I went out was to Billy Bob's, and my buddies happened to have drugs, and it was the perfect storm for me emotionally. And it's crazy. There are some studies about like national tragedies and how they affect people that have had childhood trauma.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And so and professionals first started noticing it at the bombing that happened in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And people were having these like deep responses, and they had no connection. Like people in Washington State who had no connection to anybody in Oklahoma City are having these like deep trauma responses to something, and obviously it's a national tragedy.
Absolutely,
and everybody
yeah.
feels it.
Yeah. And you feel connected through media, through television.
Yeah.
Podcasts.
And podcasts, the most important. And so I don't know. I mean, I know that everybody felt it deeply, but it was.
How did it affect you? Did you recognize that? Because I know you were going through everything else.
No, I didn't recognize it at the time.
Okay.
I mean, it was scary, first of all.
For sure.
Because,
100%.
I'm a reservist at the time, and I'm like, holy smokes, I joined to get the uniform. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know this was what it was all about. It's kind of like,
to get the girls,
kind of like that first time. I mean, for me, the first realization of, oh my goodness, this is what we're really here for was that first night. Well, it's actually the first time you get to the chow hall.
Gotcha.
At MCRD San Diego, before you get to attack the chow hall, you got to yell kill.
Yep.
And for the first time, you're hearing like, let's see, a company is 6 platoons. So you're hearing like 540 recruits yell kill.
Yeah, like Spartans.
It's nuts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not here to kill. I'm here to get the blues. You know what I mean?
We have the best uniform in the military, by the way, guys.
Everybody's got to admit it. Although the Army's trying to make some cool things.
They need to stop,
Some good looks.
Hey, we're trendsetters. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But we love you, Army, Navy, all you guys.
Especially the general.
Absolutely.
We got to keep him happy.
That's right.
On this podcast.
Let's do it.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Pew?
Pew.
Yep.
It's a runner, by the way.
Yes, he is, man. He runs forever for days. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to connecting with him on that. But so back to the point, shows a lot of fear, and that triggered that, and I couldn't admit that at the time.
Wow.
You have to act motivated. This is what we train for.
Yeah, you're ingrained with it, right? So
right,
it becomes
exactly.
second nature. Yeah.
Instead of finding a healthy way to find a chaplain or someone to talk through that fear with and say, hey, I'm gonna go.
Yes.
I'm gonna fulfill my orders, but I'm scared.
Yes.
What does that look like? And so just drank real heavy, and then that first time that party drugs were offered to me, and then I mean that was it, brother. The first time ecstasy hit my system, I thought alcohol was good. Wow. I mean, I was like,
you upgraded.
I mean, I think it was a downgrade, but I do know what you're saying. And yes,
ecstasy's an upper. So
I upper graded. That got so bad where like one of the dudes that I was using with, who was friends with our dealer, like went to the dealer and was like, dude, if you deal to Richard again, I'm gonna have to.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good friend.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah, he's been a good friend. We're childhood friends. We played soccer together, and his dad was our coach. And so then it was like, I was using party drugs all the time and trying to figure out like, at what point can I stop using so I can not pop on a Marine Corps U.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so then I had a really big scare one time, and I was like in formation, and I'm like, they're like, report to the head. And my platoon sergeant, I don't remember his name at the time, but he was a staff sergeant, and he's like, there were 2 Wallaces.
Okay.
And the other Wallace was known as the UA kid because he never came.
He was never there.
and so they're like, Wallace, report to the head. So, I mean, I'm like, I know I'm going to pop dirty.
Were you high during formation?
No, I wasn't high in formation, but it hadn't been 72 hours either.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
Still
Like,
in your system for
I
sure.
don't know if it had been 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a lot of shame, that around my military experience as well. I'm
sure.
like, man, I wish I could get a do-over and like not be an addict during that. I feel like I could have been a lot better Marine. But so I like try to saunter up to the staff sergeant and be like, hey, staff sergeant, which Wallace are you looking for? And he's like, why? You afraid you're going to pop? And I'm like, of course not, staff sergeant. There's just two of us and I want to be sure,
maybe it's his turn,
So
I got to go train.
I'm like praying. I'm like, God, I'll never do this again. If you let me get through this, and that's a lot, last thing I want is a dishonorable discharge. And he's like, nah, Wallace, you lucked out. It's the UA kid.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
And did I keep my promise to God?
Did you?
I did not, and so I used substances from alcohol from probably 99 to 2007.
Okay.
Had a radical encounter with God. February 25th, 2007. Non-functioning crystal. Well, actually, as a highly functioning crystal meth user, I was making more money than I had ever made, and in the subprime mortgage industry, and God's providence in that. RJ was crazy. Had two small kids at the time, and I had passed out. My wife knew I wasn't right, but she didn't know what was going on, and so she goes through my wallet and finds a bag of dope, and so she's like, I'm done. And so our kids had already, Gunnar and Ember at the time, were already slated to go to a birthday party with one of their friends on that Saturday morning. And so she called my dad and said, hey, I'm done with him. If there's something you want to do with him, he's at the house. And, so she makes a big fuss,
As she should.
Leaving the house with the kids and
messing up the birthday party. Like, they got a piñata, Richie.
So I'm like, whatever, I don't want to feel this. So I'm going to go numb some more. So I was actually sitting in the restroom smoking dope when all of a sudden I hear my front door come down, and it's my dad, and for the first time, and I had been caught, using and drinking previously. They knew. Yeah. And for the first time, there was no shouting. There was no, I could just hear my dad trying to catch his breath, right outside that bathroom door. And he was like, I love you, son. I don't care what it takes. God's got more for you than this.
Amen. Yes.
And so
strong dad, strong father.
I've absolutely put him through the ringer. And he's like, what can we do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to get clean. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was really, I don't want to feel these feelings. And so he took me to Sonic, and I remember just sitting there at Sonic staring out the window, and I was furious, mostly that I got caught. And for some reason, I just kept looking in the side view mirror of his Ford Explorer, and the only, like, it was, I don't know, you call it a miracle or whatever the case, but somehow I'm looking through this side view mirror, and all I can see is my son and my daughter's face in the side view mirror. And obviously they weren't standing behind the car. They were at a birthday party.
Right.
That's
God, for sure.
For sure. And so I was like, finally I come down enough, to start having a sensible conversation. And I'm like, look, I can't work where I'm working. I was a branch manager at a subprime mortgage company. The other branch manager and I were using together, and he was my connect. And I was like, I can't do what I'm doing. And, I can't keep going back to that office.
Right.
And so he's like, well, our Christian school needs a football coach. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, am I high or is he high? Like, he knows he knows what I was just doing, right? He's telling me to come coach kids.
Right.
And it was just one of those things, like, basically his way of telling me God's going to provide.
Right.
It's
so
going to work.
He probably knew he was doing something he shouldn't, and he was probably trying to work through it.
And process the whole thing. And,
yeah.
What's the one thing that I know my kid loves? It's just
sure.
teaching kids how to play football. And
yes.
We end up back at his office, and my wife shows up, and she's like, okay, well, I'll work on things, but, he's not coming home tonight.
Right.
And I'm like, okay.
And how long were you guys married up until that day?
So found out we were expecting Gunner. He was born in November of 2002, and this is 2007. So 5.5, 6 years. And it would have been way easier for her to leave.
But so she stuck by you
She's
for a
stuck
long.
She's the glue that holds us together.
Right.
So just unbelievable woman. And I mean,
it's a lot of love.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
We haven't even gotten to 2018 yet.
Uh-oh.
So, long story long, I'm a pastor's kid. And so my earliest recollection of, my parents telling me my salvation story was, I remember getting baptized when I was 7.
Okay.
We had moved into a new auditorium, and I wanted to be the first kid to get baptized in the new baptismal. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything spiritual about it, or this 7-year-old just wanted to be the first. And so I started thinking, like, I really don't remember having a personal relationship with Christ. And not that, someone who trusts Christ young, obviously we know that Christ taught that it would be better that somebody gain their faith and have a full life of serving him.
Right. You got to go through your trials sometimes to understand what it is.
And so I show up to church. I'm early to everything. She runs right on time, which really means a little bit late to everything. And so I brought the kids donuts. I think Ember was like 3 at the time, and Gunner's like 4.5 or 5. Everybody's starting to filter into church, and I'm standing at the nursery door, and here comes Gunner and Ember running down the parking lot and screaming, "Why didn't you come home last night?"
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
And they knew something was up, right?
They knew something was up, and now everybody that had young kids in the congregation knew something wasn't up.
Scuttle bucket.
And it was just God chipping away.
Right.
At that pride.
Can't hide anymore.
Yeah. And so I made it about 2/3 of the way through the service. The choir got up and sang, traditional church service, like 60 voice choir, and they ended up singing this song called Child of God, and I just shattered. And that's the moment in time where I placed my faith and trust in Jesus Christ. There was no way I was going to wiggle my way out of this financial situation, this relational situation. And I started the next day working for the church.
Next day?
The next day.
Tell me about that feeling you had when you said you felt you were shattering in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, what does Martin Luther call it? The beautiful exchange.
Yep.
Hillsong United has an incredible song called the Beautiful Exchange, based on that Martin Luther line, where you just exchange your tattered garments,
right,
for his robe of righteousness. And I had nothing to offer to anyone.
Yeah. I was singing that song the other day, like, I don't have anything fit for a king except for an hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh man, one of my favorites. Gratitude. And I mean, I just broke. I mean, there was no pride. I mean, I was crying so hard. It's only because I grew up in the church and I knew church decorum that I didn't hit the altar.
Okay.
Like at that moment. Okay. But the second my dad opened the altar for the invitation,
right.
I was down. I was like, I don't know if in previous to this moment and all that chaos, if I would have died, if I would have ended up in heaven. But I know it, at this moment in time, I need to exchange my brokenness for his wholeness, and my hurt for his wellness. And, I was sober for a long time. It was just, I don't know that God took the desire, but I mean, I think he did. And our entire family activated in the church. On my 90th day clean and sober, we started a recovery group at our church called Reformers Unanimous.
Okay. Wow. I like that.
For broken and addicted people. And we saw God do a lot of awesome stuff. We did some cool stuff.
Yeah.
With homelessness and the stories, but with that came a lot of tension.
Okay.
That I didn't expect with the modern church.
Oh, wow. Okay. Describe that.
And its purpose.
Okay.
And it's hard for me to describe that without sounding like the bitter guy who screwed off his ministry.
Well,
I'm going to dive into
No,
it.
I want you to. I'm trying to be polite myself, but because I've been through trying to cultivate an understanding of those that don't understand what God is doing because they don't see it working their version of what God should do it.
Yeah.
For lack of better words.
And it's hard. I remember like when we first announced, and people saw this radical transformation in my life, right, inside my dad's church, but they didn't know like fully. They knew I had come on staff, which, by the way, my staff position was literally, my dad told me, he's like, you're in charge of the church CD ministry. There's this thing called compact discs that a lot of young people don't know about. Before right. MP3s, which MP3s aren't even a thing anymore.
No, before LimeWire.
Yeah.
Dial up.
And so my dad's like, you're in charge of the CD ministry. You're gonna take the recordings of Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night's messages. You're gonna put them onto CDs, and then you're gonna make sure they get to the homes of the sick and shut in.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
And he's like, and then your other responsibility is to read your Bible, pray, and date your wife.
Okay.
And so I couldn't leave the office to go to lunch unless it was with my wife. And, just my dad not knowing how to send someone through treatment to get, but did all of the right things to help rebuild a marriage.
Right.
And rebuild a family. And when we first announced that we were going to open a Reformers Unanimous chapter in our church, I got up before the congregation, and I took that old infomercial for the Hair Club for Men. And I was like, not only am I going to be, the leader of this ministry, but I'm also a client,
Yes.
And I literally try to make a joke, based on this deal. And it was like the oxygen left the room. I remember right where, it was.
Everybody just got quiet.
Everybody got quiet, like, holy smokes. And I was like, yeah, I was a 24/7 crystal meth user and yada, yada, yada. And
but was it like, how dare you? You can't be Christian. Like, what was the mindset?
No, like
there?
the initial, it's crazy, dude. Like the initial response was, okay, so you're going to open the church facilities to a bunch of addicts on Friday nights. That's cool.
That's so horrible too. I've had someone tell me once that they didn't want a group to grow because the church isn't a community center. And I'm like, the last time I checked, Jesus served and he walked with those who were not highly regarded by hierarchies or class systems.
That's a crazy statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guarantee you on Sunday, your pastor's like, join a community group.
Yeah.
Get involved in a small group because life and church are all about community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think everybody was pretty much down with Friday night. It was because we were trying to trick addicts into coming to church.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the whole Reformers, it was a global organization for a while, and the founder passed away, and then, he was kind of my good friend Stephen Currington. But the addicts didn't know that they were showing up for a church service. It just happened to be on Friday night. And the object was, we're going to take the devil's night of worship and we're going to turn it into Christ's night of worship. And addicts are going to wake up sober for the first time on a Saturday morning. Wow. And they're going to be able to mow their lawn. Mm. They're going to be able to take their kids to breakfast or make breakfast for their kids. And then we're going to offer you a second recovery class. Just happens to be on Sunday morning.
What a mission statement. We want you to wake up sober for the first time in a long time, right?
Yeah,
see that beautiful sun, taste that coffee.
A lot.
It's beautiful.
Saw it happen a lot in a lot of people's lives. And so the first pushback really came when we offered a Sunday class. Because it's cool for addicts to show up and just use the facility when no one else is there, when no one else's kids are there.
Right.
Because, every drug addict, I guess, is also, I don't know what people's perceptions of addicts are.
I think some people just feel, and this is the same thing with homeless people or anybody dealing with mental health illnesses, they get ostracized or stigmatized, where it's just like when we were in Iraq, we'd call the bad guys the insurgents, right? Which a lot of them were bad guys. But when you put a title on something, it becomes subhuman or not human anymore. So it's easy to categorize homeless people or addicts and be like, oh, well, yeah, but they're like not as important.
Right.
That's not the truth.
It's not the truth at all. It's the reason Christ came. And so, yeah, we saw God do a lot of awesome things. And there was just that constant tension of what self-righteous people thought righteousness should look like.
Man, say it again.
And, I knew my time at that. And, it was never like my father got it, obviously, but there came a point where we had this opportunity to invite this lady who had lost her son to a heroin overdose.
Okay.
And she had started a not-for-profit called WTF, Winning the Fight.
Okay.
And that's all I know that WTF stands
That's
for.
exactly what I thought it meant.
And so obviously, the story for WTF is, and she continues to do, well, she recently passed, but that organization continues to do incredible things as far as like drug awareness in local elementary, middle school, and high schools.
Absolutely. You got to start there before people become addicted to anything. You need to do preventive maintenance.
Yeah. And they take people who are in recovery and try to present a better way. And so this lady and I had become very, very close. And we had invited her to a community Sunday, and she was going to share the story about her son, Brett.
Okay.
Brett had died of a heroin overdose. And she was going to come to this church. And she, at that point, had hundreds of high school age students coming to her recovery meetings.
Really? Hundreds.
And so I'm like, what an incredible opportunity to potentially grow Reformers Unanimous at Temple Baptist Church. Maybe segregate, the purpose wasn't to grow the church, but the opportunity was there to grow the church.
Yes.
And so we were already doing a series on community and this, that, and the other thing. And so like the mayor was going to come and different stuff. And so, and everybody was good with WTF coming. There was a little bit of pushback on the name, but I'm like, I don't know. It stands for Winning the Fight.
Right. Exactly.
And then a couple of the more influential, more affluent people inside the church caught wind that there was going to be an organization called WTF that was coming, and that might not be awesome. And so I received a phone call from one of those guys, and
I'm trying to hold my tongue from things I want to say, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so he said, hey, I hear there's an organization called WTF. And we had this back and forth on the phone, and he's like, well, you know what that stands for? And I said, it stands for WTF. And he's like, stop being a jackass. Wow. And I said, bro, it literally stands for WTF. And he's like, you know exactly what it stands for. And I said, it's an acronym, and it stands for Winning the Fight. The ladies' organization. So I'm like, hey, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I'm like, hey, pull up your phone and go to the Texas Comptroller's site right now.
For sure.
And pull up WTF.
Yep. Look at the LLC.
State of Texas.
For sure.
The not-for-profit. And he was like, well, you're being an ass. And
this is one of the guys that's higher up in there.
He just had a lot of influence.
Gotcha. Okay.
He had not so much over the church leadership, but he's a very successful guy, very popular, very, very well connected, not just inside the church, but inside the Dallas community. And
okay.
And so he wielded that power, and that was the tension that broke things for me. And so I end up getting a phone call from my dad, and he's like, hey, I'm not sure about this organization, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, hey, this is, I've told this mother that she gets to come tell the story of her son's death and how she's trying to turn it into use for good.
Absolutely. And
not as my dad, but as my pastor and my boss, I got to be real careful. I just...
Sure.
The tension broke for me. And so I just said, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to call this lady. You can call her, and you can try to explain to her why the church isn't and he's like, well, the story's fantastic.
Why the church isn't acting like the church.
Yeah. And he said that, the story we don't have a problem with. It's the name of the organization. And I'm like, Dad, don't do this with me. The name of the organization is Winning the Fight.
Right.
You've got a couple of guys who are affluent and influential, and they have a problem with the acronym. And I'm like, and the purpose behind naming the organization WTF in the first place was he would, you remember those auto replies that you could put at the bottom of your text message?
Yes.
And
make
so,
it easy.
Yeah. And so that was his line, WTF at the end of all of his texts. And he didn't mean winning the fight. He wasn't winning his fight, but that was the end of his deal. And so his mom always had a problem with it. But then when he passed, she was like, well, how can I take this negative thing, Brett's death, and this acronym that he would use at the end of his text messages, and how can I make it relevant? And how can I turn something and repurpose it for God's good and for his glory?
As we all should, because everything that God does, the devil, he makes a knockoff version, right? It's the opposite. Sex is for love and creation, and then the devil turns it into lust and all these other things, right?
Exactly. And so, I just told my dad, I said, hey, I'm going to call her because I'm the one that has a relationship with her, but things are different. And so shortly after that, it was just, we had this young couple who were living together, which isn't the right thing, but they wanted to sing in the choir, and which is great. No one knows their story. No one knows they're living together except for the people that think they need to know or they should know, and so one of the deacons came to my dad and was like, well, rumor has it that these people are living together, and is that who we should have in the choir? And so I'm like, so I got to tell you're expecting me to tell these baby believers that they, because they haven't matured at the rate that you think they should mature at. And by the way, that was an ongoing conversation that we had. Like,
for sure,
I can teach you how to have happiness and joy, apart. I can teach you how to have happiness and joy in marriage.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
But there's only going to be confusion that comes, without making that relational bond before God.
100%.
In marriage.
You have to meet them where they're at, and then you can disciple them. Otherwise, it just comes out as judgment.
Right, exactly.
And maybe it is to a certain extent, depending on who's sending the message.
Yeah, who's conveying it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this minor blow up in the church foyer, and
church ministry is hard. If y'all thought it was easy,
it's messy. It's messy, and you either have to say, well, this is just people's ignorance, or you can end up that bitter, angry,
yes,
guy. And so I was like, well, I mean, I gotta tell these people that they can't sing in the church choir, or I could go down the road and be a pastor to broken people.
Amen.
And so our family started this group called Life Change Church, and getting people to give to a church with no building, a church with no facilities or rented facilities, where you're like celebrating people coming in off the streets. And the whole church is young believers and converts and unsaved people. And they haven't learned the disciplines of tithing and giving yet.
For sure. They're new, brand new.
They're brand new.
But they're still searching.
And so, we just never picked up the traction that we needed, and that sent me to a place of working 2.5 jobs to try to make ends meet and try to keep the church going. And, I met a bad person on a weeknight, and that individual just happened to be like, I was driving Uber.
Gotcha.
Last pickup of the night, and I bet you're tired. And I don't know, maybe I still had the look, and offered me crystal meth, and that led to a 90-day relapse. Ended up dying on, I used to remember the day, May the 20th, I think, 2018.
Okay.
Actually died of a GHB overdose. The stereotypical, you think you're using friends and your dealer friends or your friends, you find out real fast. They literally kicked me out the door.
Oh, absolutely.
Of my own car, dying of an overdose, stole my car, stole all my belongings, and just left me at the hospital. And I remember they hit me with Narcan, and I came back long enough to tell whoever I was talking to, nurses and orderlies or whatever, if you tell anybody I'm here, my name's going to be on the sign of that hospital. I'm going to sue you, just the arrogance, of somebody under the influence. And then the next time I woke up, I was surrounded by my family. And I'm like, holy smokes, how'd they find out I was here? And so I still wasn't done. I convinced my mom. She loves me too much, believes me too much. Convinced her to break me out of the hospital. And so that was at the end of May. Continued to use. Just ended up living at my parents' house. And so I'm still driving Uber, right?
Okay.
And I come across these two angels. I met the devil driving Uber.
Yeah.
And I met a couple angels driving Uber.
Yeah. Devil's always looking for someone to devour.
Yeah, but this is crazy. So I go to this pickup actually here in Grand Prairie over by the horse track. This La Quinta Inn, and it's two ladies, and they're like, "Hey, we're in from Montana, maybe somewhere up in the wild Northwest."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, what brings you guys to Dallas?" Just trying to make small talk. And they're like, "Well, you've probably never heard of this before, but we're here for the Bethel conference."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Get out of here. Are you serious?" And they're like, "Yeah, blah, blah, blah." So I throw on that Christian hat real quick, got a pocket full of dope and, all of a sudden a mouthful of gospel, and so I start, just throwing in the Christianese and start engaging with these ladies, and they have like total crazy spiritual discernment. Obviously they know, I'm like a shattered person.
Right.
And so I'm like, drop them. They're like, "Well, what can we do?" And I'm like, well, first we started talking about Corey Asbury and that song that I can't think of the name of right now. And so like God was starting to chip away at me that day. So they're like, "Hey, we don't know anybody here. Uber's not always awesome. Can we just hire you to be our driver for the weekend?"
Really?
Yeah.
And they were from out of town?
They're from out of town.
Wow. It's a lot of faith.
A lot of faith. And like, I don't know what happened, RJ. Like, I just couldn't stop talking. Like I told them how broken my family was, how I had disappointed and broken my son and daughter's hearts, and like I couldn't shut up. And they're like praying over me, like laying hands on me. Like they gave me $100 cash, which was not wise on their part. I like re-upped. And I was like, "Oh, sweet, dope money." And so they're like, "Okay, well, here's the thing. You got to be here on," I think it was a Friday night. They're like, "You got to pick us up from the Bethel conference on Friday night. But here's the thing. You got to pick us up with your family."
Really?
And
Wow.
then we're going to go to IHOP.
Okay, so you said yes, but they believed you were going to do it because they have no control over what you do once you drop them off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, so, I mean, I took them to the stockyards and just hung out in the stockyards while they went and shopped. And they took me to a Firehouse Subs in Irving. And like,
Right.
I mean, literally, I'm just like hanging out with these two
Godly Christian women.
godly Christian women.
Yeah.
And so we end up going to IHOP. I was like, can you imagine being my wife?
Mm-hmm.
Like, "Hey, I met these two chicks, they're like from out of town. And I swear they're here for the Bethel conference, and they really want to meet you." And
So you're like, "Hear me out.
and
Hear
the
me
kids,
out."
like you think about it, like from that, and that's what, from that aspect, it's like, it's just bonkers. Like
Another one of Rich's crazy adventures.
crazy adventures. And so for some reason, Michelle's like, "Okay, and so they're like, "We're going to pray a blessing over you." And this was a Friday night, and our family was leaving for Colorado that next morning.
Okay.
And I feel like my dad felt like, well, and I grew up, that's where I grew up vacationing, was my mom grew up on the western slope of Colorado, Grand Junction.
Okay.
And so it's like my soul's solace.
Yeah.
Is to get back to where I was, when I was a kid, just playing in the woods and fishing and
The innocence, the happiness, the joy.
before the trauma.
For sure.
And so I think my dad felt like, well, if I can just get him to Colorado. And I kept telling him, I'm like, Dad, it's a bad idea, man. Like, I can't not use. Like, you don't understand. Like, my mind is telling me that it is going to die if I don't put this substance in my body. And if you take me, I'm gonna be a jerk, and I'm not gonna be good to be around. And if I run out of dope, and that was the thing, well, you can't bring dope, and I brought dope. I'm like, then I'm just gonna sleep, because at this point I've probably been up 60 hours.
Right, because at that point, using was your God.
Absolutely, total idol. We all end up in this. In the car together on the way to Colorado, family vacation.
Okay.
My family calls it the vacation from hell. And
But hold on a sec. What happened with the IHOP thing? They trying to make it to IHOP?
They prayed a blessing over me.
Okay.
And over our family, and they were like, we believe that God is gonna do a new thing in the life of you and your family.
That's awesome.
And we were like, you're crazy. We're headed for divorce.
Right.
There's no way.
You would think Colorado's that last hurrah for me, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. And, there's other crazy stories along the way. Like in the middle of that 90-day relapse, I went home to our home now, and I sat down with a shotgun on a table, and I was just like waiting for the perfect moment to take my own life. And
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. So somehow I get bored. Like ADHD saved my life. Like I get bored thinking about suicide. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
so I start scrolling reels.
Okay.
And I come across this. It was Britain's Got Talent, and he's this Irish Catholic priest, and he sings that REM song.
Okay.
That I also can't think of the name of. Right?
Is it? That's not Losing My Religion, right?
No.
REM.
Gunnar, look it up.
Thank you, Gunnar. We got Gunnar here. He's our producer today.
Yeah, I didn't know this was gonna. This is actually very healing for me to retell the story.
Absolutely,
I hope
man.
it helps someone else.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what this podcast is for. Is
Everybody hurts.
absolutely. And you said back in the 80s and stuff like that, people didn't talk a lot about trauma because men are like, oh, we're men, this and that. Well, men pass out and die at 50 from heart attacks from holding it all inside. I'm trying to live a long time. I got a family. I want to see my grandkids find Jesus too.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
it's Everybody Hurts by REM.
Everybody Hurts. Okay, I got you.
And it's this parish priest.
Okay.
And that whole time, like I had been texting Michelle, like, why haven't you come home? Blah, 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 blah. And so this is what actually led me up to watching the reels was my daughter, Ember, who's 20 now. She's just an incredible woman. She suffers with type 1 diabetes, and every day she's looking to better herself and raise awareness to juvenile diabetes. Nice. And so
it's a good cause.
She texts me and she says, either be kind or be quiet.
Your daughter.
I was like, well, I'm certainly
your daughter checking.
I'm certainly not being kind. So maybe I should sit here and be quiet.
Uh-oh.
And so the shotgun's still like it's a taller table. I had moved it like into the middle of my living room, and the shotgun's laying across there. And so I'm like, so just for a split second, like, be kind or be quiet. And then the Holy Spirit whispers, be still and know that I'm God. And then ADD kicks in. And so I start scrolling, and I found this Britain's Got Talent video of this parish priest singing this REM song, Everybody Hurts.
Okay.
And it was almost like I didn't get sober after it immediately, but it was almost like that moment back in 2007 where the choir sang Child of God.
Right.
And you know how Simon Cowell, they're introducing themselves. And so at the end of it, he talks about the brokenness and all the hurt that he sees as a parish priest, and how he just wants to let everybody know that everybody hurts.
Right.
And it's a powerful, crazy powerful song. And the way he sings it is just absolutely beautiful and masterful. And so we get to Colorado. At some point, I try to choose to live homeless. I like run away from my family in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay.
And I'm trying to score dope. And I go to this veteran's place, and I'm like, and my family comes looking for me. And I don't remember how I ended up I don't even remember how they found me that day, but
What year was this?
this was 2018.
Okay.
And so I didn't score dope. They take me up the mountain to Grand Mesa National Forest. And so I tell everybody I literally lost my mind at 10,000 feet. Like I woke up and they had thrown my dope in the trash.
Yeah.
Like I just had this residue in a baggie, you know what I mean? And
Right.
and I wake up and I go nuts.
Yeah, you're-
super angry.
They took your candy away.
Anger is a secondary emotion, I've come to learn. Usually anger is triggered by something else. Fear, like fear of not having drugs, you know, and so it manifested itself in anger. And I just walked off, literally walking down this mountain. I don't know where I was going, you know, but I was needing a fix. I was needing to score. What I was really needing was Jesus and an encounter with him.
Yeah.
And ended up down in this little town called Mesa. I got ripped to shreds. I had actually broken into this guy's house. I thought I was going to die of thirst. And just a miracle, bro. Like, this guy is a doctor in Dallas.
He was in the house?
No, nobody was in the house.
Okay.
And, so, I mean, I literally drank ginger ale, Canada Dry, out of his refrigerator. Didn't take anything else.
Hey, I love Canada.
And, you know, I told the sheriff when I got down there, like, hey, I broke into this house up there because I thought I was going to die of thirst.
How'd you find the sheriff?
They found me.
Okay. I got you. Touche.
Them and my family found me, and the sheriff was like, okay. Well, my dad's like, yeah, my son's got struggles, you know, and they're like, well, look, you know, a lot of people, this is like wilderness, like national forest.
For
you know?
sure. Yeah.
So they're like, a lot of the homeowners understand hikers getting lost, skiers getting lost. You know, if you're upfront and transparent with the homeowner, and, you know, he's like, I can't speak for him.
Right.
You know, but if he's willing to not press charges and you guys can work it out, then that's between you guys, you know.
Great police work.
And
and I'm being honest, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shredded. Like I had been walking through these briars and bristles, like it had ripped my shirt into a midriff, and
He knew something was up.
I had drank this mountain water straight out of a stream, so I had like Montezuma's Revenge. Like, I mean, I literally smelt like a hot mess.
Okay.
When I got down to this little town, and my family came back for me. And by the time I got back to Louisville, I was like, I'll go to treatment.
Did the owner find out? Did you talk to him?
Yeah, we talked to him, and he never pressed charges. We made restitution and made everything right, and he never pressed charges. And then my family dumped me off at the Healing Springs Ranch in Tioga, Texas.
Okay.
Where I learned a lot about myself and a lot about trauma and a lot about triggers and a lot about how to live a better way.
So I'm hearing your story, and I see God all over it. He has his hand all over you, and he's been trying to bring you back home, right? Like the prodigal son.
Yeah.
So tell us about rehab. How did that go?
Man, rehab was, you know, I used to have a lot of feelings about rehab. You know, I thought it was like a glorified vacation. And what I tell people is, you know, now it's like, it's a timeout, you know, where you come to a place of self-realization and you say, hey, something's gotten a hold of me that's stronger than me. You know, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they teach that alcohol is cunning, powerful, and baffling. And then people have added on to that literature to say it's also patient.
That's so true.
You know, and so, and it's not just alcohol, you know, it's all mind-altering substances or all mind-altering behaviors, you know, pornography addiction, you know, anything that allows us to numb. And so that was the mantra of the Healing Springs Ranch, was to feel our feelings and be safe. And so they finally taught me how to get curious about, how am I feeling today? You know, it's the first thing, like, how am I feeling today? What am I feeling today? And then having the tools to feel those feelings and be safe without numbing. And so it was amazing for me. You know, I went in on it was just, they didn't have any beds. I have a family friend, Amy and Mike Wallace, who knew somebody and called somebody and said, this guy's going to die. He's already died once, tried to commit suicide 3 times over this 90-day relapse. He's got this window where he's willing to go find him a bed. And Rachel and Melissa at Healing Springs Ranch made a bed for me. I end up in treatment with this guy who's a serial entrepreneur. It was just so amazing. And I went in I was just hungry.
Yeah.
And, I read everything they gave me to read. I participated in what would be seemingly like this clay wall, like, hey, grab this chunk of clay and throw it at a wall, for anger management class. You look at it and you try to rationalize it.
Right.
But their whole thing was like, stay out of your head and stay in your heart, and because we get in trouble when we're in our head.
Yes. Was this your first rehab?
First time to rehab. Yeah.
And so when you went there, like, were you reluctant? Were you like, I don't want to do this, or like?
At first I was an ass.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, I'll go to treatment. It's called, what's the name of the place that all the stars go to in Malibu? Not Passages. Maybe it is Passages. I was like, yeah, I'll go there. And then
I was thinking of Sandals Resort for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why.
It may be like that. But and then there was another one. Like I love the hill country, so I had heard about this place, which I'm gonna try not to cry, but I had heard about this place down in the hill country, and I was like, well, I'll go there, and my parents were like, but Michelle and the kids want to come see you, and if you're somewhere like 4 hours away, we're not sure how that'll work. And I'm like, well, I'm also worried about being this close to home.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Healing Springs is the only one that dealt with trauma, right? Yeah, it was one of the, it's a great point. Thank you, Gunnar. Yeah. So it's a trauma-based rehab.
Wow, that's
phenomenal. And you have to be dual diagnosed to get in. So
they're not just focused on the addiction; they're the root of it. That is awesome.
Yeah, great point.
To our producer, thank you, sir.
And
need you here more often, to be honest.
Then I found out that my wife is pregnant.
Okay.
And Gunnar was trying to figure out how this was possible because I wasn't living at the house, and his grandfather's like, well, he doesn't have to be living there for. And
okay.
And so in the middle of all this brokenness, God continues to give gifts.
Amen.
David in the book of Psalms said that it's the goodness of God that leads men to repentance.
Wow. Yes. And he's been surrounding you forever
with goodness.
And goodness and a loving wife who has been there and stood by you too.
Yeah. And we all get into those paths, especially when it's someone that we know and love that's going through something we don't understand. It's like emotionally you want to shake them. So what do you use? Angry words, shameful words to try to shake someone. Sometimes people physically try to shake someone.
Right.
To get them to choose a better way. Because the last thing we want to do as family members and friends of someone that's going through something we don't understand is fully embrace them. Because a lot of times we're afraid, well, if we, and we see this in the church a lot, don't we? Well, if we fully embrace the individual, they think that we're going to be fully embracing their behaviors.
Right.
We know that sin is a double-edged sword. Not only is the devil the tempter, but he's also the accuser of the brethren.
No.
And so when we're in the middle of that addiction or that brokenness behavior, we'll call it, everybody from the outside looking in thinks, oh, they're completely happy. Well, no, because the same devil that just tempted them on this shoulder is now accusing them. Well, you'll never be nothing. You'll never be anything more than a junkie.
Yes. A lot of gaslighting.
A lot of gaslighting from the enemy. And so it's just an eternal state of unhappiness and hopelessness. And so, yeah, the goodness of God, we call her and one because you're a basketball fan.
Yes.
Go Mavs.
Bring back Luka.
Way to trade Luka. Awesome. The and one play comes after a hard foul.
Yes.
And so she's our and one. She's a gift after a hard foul.
That's beautiful. Amen.
And so
children are gifts.
They are gifts.
Man, they're just gifts. Yes.
And so I was like, Yeah, I'll go to treatment. And it was very touch and go while I was there. You know, we had Michelle had a breast cancer scare, you know, and it was incredible. So they don't let you in unless you're dual diagnosed. So I mean, got in for a plethora of things, you know, PTSD, non-combat related as a result of the childhood trauma, a substance abuse disorder. Addiction is a disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's a disease of the soul, first and foremost.
Wow,
A disease of the spirit. Christian people call it sin. And there is a cure for the disease. And that cure for the disease is a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ and maintaining that relationship on a daily basis.
Amen. That's why we are to die to our flesh.
That's right.
Daily.
And having an encounter with Him. And so, like, Gunner's, we were talking about the drum set earlier.
Right, yeah.
So Gunner's always been a drummer. I'm very hustle. You know, let's get there early. He has always marched the beat of his own drum.
Okay.
You know, some may call it move at a slower pace, you know, whatever. But, you know, so we would always, when he was little, we would call him Myrtle Turtle.
Okay.
Okay, so this is only God, right?
Okay.
So they're like, well, let's take you on this tour of Healing Springs Ranch. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to do a tour. And they're like, well, yeah, you're staying after the tour. I'm like, okay, well, that's what I need. And so we go to the bunkhouse. They put us on a golf cart, and they're going to take us down and show us the community house.
Okay.
And so it's like just a beautiful ranch piece of property out in Tioga. And we're going down this golf cart path, and there's this little wooden bridge that crosses over this little creek, and there's a yield sign with a turtle on it. And it says Myrtle Turtle.
What?
God is my witness.
That's crazy.
So I'm like,
Wow.
I break into, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not lost on me what God's doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sober for the first time, and I passed my urinalysis at Healing Springs, and I had to convince him, like, no, I'm going to die if I don't stay here. Like,
Right, if you leave.
Like, just because I'm clean at this moment doesn't mean I'm going to stay clean, you know?
Right.
And so I'm like, what's the story? And she's like, the lady that was giving us a tour, her name's Donna. She was like, well, when Rachel and Melissa first opened this place, they would always be in a hurry, but there was always a turtle that was crossing this bridge. Like, every time they would, you know, because they had stuff to do. They were going to change lives. They had a treatment facility to open.
For sure. They're ready to build.
But you can't run over the turtle.
Right.
And so their thing was, we're going to build a yield sign as a constant reminder to slow down and stay mindful, to not get lost in the busyness of life and what you have to do and what you have to build, that you lose focus on the turtle wins the race.
That is so good. Don't get lost, you know, enjoy the process before you get to the finish line, because there's a lot of lessons in that. I love that. That's phenomenal. God's always working, isn't he?
He is. It's crazy. So Myrtle Turtle. So I'm like, you know, God, this is it. How could I end up, how could I end up at a treatment facility that has a sign that has my son's nickname on it? Anything other than God.
Absolutely. And God does not make coincidences.
Right.
That is amazing.
So the first guy I meet there, like, I don't remember his name. I do know that he passed, but we're actually out fishing. And he's like, hey, you know, is this your first time at treatment? And I'm like, yeah, you know, this is my first treatment. How about you? And he's like, no, I've actually been to treatment 6 times. And he's like, this is my second stint here at Healing Springs Ranch. And I'm like, oh yeah, how is it? You know, I've literally been, like, it's right after dinner. So I've maybe been there like 6 hours, 4 or 6 hours. And he's like, well, you know, I've been to this other place 3 times. And I can't remember the name of it now, but it's the place that I told my family that I was willing to go.
Okay.
In the hill country. And I was like,
wow.
What? And he's like, yeah, I've been there 3 times. He's like, I can tell you, you know, that place is full of mostly college kids, because it was in the Austin area. You know, he's like, it's mostly college kids whose parents have forced them to go to treatment. He's like, I'm sure but he's like, it's not trauma based. It's not what this place is. He's like, it's more academic and like brain knowledge. He's like, here, these people are going to teach you to connect to your heart
Right.
and allow that connection to connect you to the hearts of the people that are around you.
Okay.
And so I'm like, what are the odds that, in my first 6 hours here, and I've actually got a talk on it. It was like 7 miracles that happened in the first 24 hours
Okay.
that were an absolute confirmation. And I've actually had the opportunity to go back and share that talk with the people that are currently receiving treatment at Healing Springs Ranch. And it's
Really?
like, yeah.
You're doing the run thing, and then you got the landscaping business. And you came out to the Vest Group a while back, and you gave a powerful message to the guys, which I thought was a lot about accountability and self-reflection. What advice would you give someone that was where you used to be to get to where you are today? What would you tell them?
Just stay. Just stay. Again, because suicide's something that's not understood by a lot of people. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of judgment about it. Some of the most financially strong people I know, some of the most emotionally strong people I know, some of the most relationally strong people I know are attempt survivors.
For sure.
Or at least wrestle with suicidal ideation.
It's never someone you expect.
Yeah, or sometimes it is.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes people will tell you, or they'll say something, and it's scary to the hearer. And so, just like any other mental health issue that we don't understand, what do we end up doing? We end up shaming. We end up saying these mantras that we think we've heard. Oh, that's the unpardonable sin.
Right.
And I would just say that to stay. It sounds so simple. Like when you go to AA for the first time, they'll say, "Don't drink and come to meetings." And it's like, well, the reason I'm at the meeting is because I can't stop drinking. How am I supposed to,
right?
And then they literally teach you, it's like just for today, and so the thing that I would tell myself in the middle of that is just stay. Dude, I saw this amazing clip. In fact, I was probably more nervous than this guy.
Okay.
We had gotten for Gunner's birthday, we had gotten him to do is show you, keep the hopelessness in front of you. But if you are in that dark place and you could find just a moment of clarity and you stay just long enough where you can imagine your wildest dream, what do we know about God? He's going to do immeasurably more than I could ever hope, think, dream, or imagine. And how is it that now, almost 7 years later, my best friend is the woman that I disappointed and broke her heart more than can ever be explained. And my other 3 best pals, 2 of them, I destroyed their vision of what a Christ-like father is. Just pulled their lives like a rug up from underneath them. And those are my 2 best friends.
Right.
And my wife. And then in the midst of all that, God's given me a little girl who's never seen me under the influence.
Wow. Powerful.
Immeasurably more than I could ever hope, think, dream, or imagine.
That is such a blessing. That is such a powerful message. Well, I'm glad that you stayed.
Thank you.
And you're doing wonderful things for the kingdom, for your children. And God sent you angels in that family. And our first ministry is our family. And I think you're doing an incredible job. So I'm very proud of you. And I'm very proud to call you my friend.
Likewise, RJ.
Yeah, man. Thank you for being on the podcast, man. We'll have you... We'll drop some information so you guys can follow Richard, check out his Instagram and his run stuff. And God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, absolutely. We'll do more of this.
Love it.
Appreciate you.
Probably should have come out from behind the mic.
No, are you good? If you guys enjoy that podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. We may do a Patreon page because it does cost money to get this setup running. But check out Richard's stuff. We'll put those links in the description. Like and subscribe. Love you guys and stay faithful always and just focus on the discernment of Jesus Christ. Now get out of here.
That's Montoya Power.